Welcome to the TDCC Community Live webinar. TDCC stands for the Developing Child Center, located in Dubai. Established in 2012. We have been providing personalized support to over 1,000 children. We have 60 dedicated and committed experts, and we work closely with parents and schools to ensure no child is left behind. We think different, we teach different. We empower, not limit children. Labels like autism, dyslexia, and ADHD are not relevant or perceived as disabilities, difficulties, or disorders that limit children's abilities. We believe that brilliance needs difference. The TDCC services are available in English, French, and Arabic. The inclusive educational services nurture and support the developmental and educational needs and help empower each child to reach their full potential. Occupational therapy assists children in performing and achieving important learning and developmental skills they need in life. Psychomotor therapy is a healthcare profession that is based on a holistic view of the person and is involved in the treatment of different disorders. Speech and language therapy assists children who have disorders of speech, language, communication, and swallowing. Psychology provides both educational and clinical services, including counseling and parenting. ABA therapy focuses on improving specific behaviors. It is commonly practiced as a therapeutic intervention for individuals with autism. Specialist learning support. We assist in developing the academic and social development of students who need support in all these areas. And we design and host local and international training and workshops for practitioners, parents, caregivers, and educators. Just like this one today. We have a few rules to follow during the webinar. Please remain muted while the speaker is presenting. Please give your full attention to the presentation. We will be sending you the replay, so you can review at any time. Please be interactive if the speaker requests your participation. During the question and answer session, we kindly request everyone to type their questions in the chat box and the speaker will address them.
Welcome to the 50th TDCC webinar worldwide. Our speaker, Joa Feghali, is a distinguished speech and language therapist with a master's degree in speech and language therapy. Fluent in Arabic, English, and French, Joa brings 7 years of experience specializing in working with children and teenagers. Her areas of expertise are autism spectrum disorder, dysfluency or stuttering, developmental language disorder, feeding therapy, and learning challenges. Joa provides online therapy services, employing evidence-based techniques to enhance the communication skills of children and teenagers. She also actively coaches parents and educational teams on implementing effective strategies at home and in school settings. Beyond traditional therapy, Joa is committed to improving communication abilities through individual and group online sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Joa Feghali.
Thank you for the introduction and thank you for all the efforts that you're putting so that the webinars, reach as many people as possible. Today we will be talking about stuttering, which is a subject that is very close to my heart. I do work with children and teens who are facing and dealing with stuttering. And I can assure you and I can tell you that they sometimes feel alone, like they are alone in this. And they are sometimes dealing not only with the struggle of the stuttering itself, but also sometimes they are facing some, comments, some reactions from their environment that are not necessarily beneficial at all points. So even if sometimes they come from good intentions, they're not always helpful. So I really hope that by the end of this webinar, you will be able to support and you will know the right strategies to support the children and the teens that you are either seeing in your classrooms or raising at your homes. Today we will be talking about, I'm going to explain to you like what is stuttering, what is really stuttering, what are the common myths and facts, how can you support the children, and also how can you specifically support teenagers. So what is really stuttering? If we're gonna go with an easy explanation, it would be when your words get stuck and when you feel out of control to get them out again. Another explanation that is commonly used, that it's the speech disorder, because it's like because the person would experience some disruptions in the flow of their speech. The most accurate definition would be the one that is written in the DSM-5 that places the stuttering under communication disorder and that describes it as childhood onset fluency disorder. And this is where we're gonna be focused, and this is our main topic today. This classification recognizes the stuttering as not only a speech disorder where the person gets stuck on the words, but also it addresses the importance of the communication part and the interactions and the emotional well-being that are sometimes affected by stuttering. So this is the most important point also that we're gonna be dealing with today. So what causes stuttering? There are multiple factors causing stuttering, and research is showing more and more that the main factors are mostly genetics and neurophysiological. I'm going to attempt to explain as simple as possible what usually is happening when a person is stuttering. So on the left side, we have a typical speech process. So usually when we want to speak, the brain would plan the words we have to say. There is a certain thing happening within the brain that will get us specific and precise rhythmic and timing signals to be able to produce speech smoothly. Now, when we are having some genetic influence, so when we are saying that there are genetic factors, neurophysiological factors affecting the brain function and the speech while speaking, which is resulting in stuttering, we can say that the brain, when it wants to produce the precise timing signals, it is being a bit affected. So the timings are not really working, the rhythm is not really working on point so that the speech will be out precisely. Now, depending on the complexity of the words, of the words that you're gonna use, this also plays a role in the brain's timing mechanism, which is causing some delay and some irregular signals, which is affecting the speech production and resulting in stuttering. Stuttering is when we see some repetitions, I want to go, or when we face some prolongations to some sounds that are not necessarily prolonged, like sometimes I feel I am getting stuck. So this is what we usually see in stuttering. And it is also characterized by some blocks. So you might see some blocking mechanism or some spasm or blockages when a person is actually delivering a speech or when they are, having a conversation with you. Now, this is what stuttering is from a speech point of view. There are many other factors that are affecting that the person will stutter more or less, because a person with stuttering will not be stuttering necessarily 24/7. There are many environmental factors. There are many things, and especially here, the ones that I mentioned on the slide, there are many things such as physiological states, such as a level of discomfort that can come and affect our have the child or the person stutter more or less. So when a person is talking to themselves, or when they are talking with someone who they are, comfortable with, they're not going to necessarily stutter. But if they are giving a public presentation, if they are a bit more stressed, stuttering might be visible a bit more. Another thing that is related to physiological state, so when someone is really tired, when is sleepy, when hungry, like when physiologically speaking they're not really comfortable enough, this also might affect the way they are fluent in their speech. Next to the repetitions and the prolongations and the blocks that we might see, we can also sometimes see some movement, some neck tension, some physical movement that we sometimes see with a child or with a teenager, that are sometimes also affecting the communication. I'm sharing some numbers with you. As I understood that there are many of you who are teachers, and I'm pretty sure that you are seeing more and more children who are stuttering at a young age, between the 2 and 6 years old. There's nothing to be afraid of. This is not the typical stuttering. This is not the long-term stuttering, because many children, between the age of 2 and 6, and 5 and up to 10% of them would face some sort of stuttering. Because at this age, they are developing their language, they are learning how to produce sentences. There are so many things going on. And anyway, 85% of them will recover, whether with an intervention or sometimes naturally, because sometimes it can happen when the child is learning, is developing their language. Which leaves us with 1% of the world's population who has to face the long-term stuttering. So in the, between the 1%, we can see it's much more seen within the male population rather than the female population, which with a ratio of 4/1. And I would like to also inform you that it's not related to any language, any culture, any country. It is global. It affects everyone, wherever this person is living, and no matter what the conditions are. Now, I would like to ask you to participate in this section. As I'm gonna address some statements, and I wanna ask you to type in the chat box number 1 if you think that this is a fact, and I will ask you to press number 2 if you think that it's actually a myth. I'm gonna check my chat box. I hope you will all participate. We're gonna start with the first one. Stuttering is caused by nervousness or anxiety in children. 1, if it's a fact. 2, if it's a myth. Okay. I can see many of you answered with 1, many answered with 2. It's not only the cause, okay? All right, okay, so I'm gonna explain the statement here, and I'm gonna tell you why it's actually a myth and not a fact. So when I told you about the causes of the stuttering, I highlighted the genetic factor and the neurophysiological factor. And I only mentioned stress as a factor that would affect kind of indirectly. So it will be an external, factor that will let the person stutter more or less. But a person without like if the person is not genetically predisposed or already affected by stuttering, they will not necessarily stutter. So the main cause, the root cause, it is not anxiety, it is not nervousness. Nervousness and anxiety in certain situations will affect the person's speech or will affect the person's stuttering, but it's not the reason behind the stuttering. We're gonna go to the second one, and I'm gonna, at the end of the presentation, if you guys have any question, we're gonna be able to discuss and answer your questions. So telling someone to slow down or take a deep breath will help reduce their stuttering. Is it a thing that, is it a fact or is it a myth? Okay, so far we have one answer, 1, 2, 2, 1. Any more answers? Fact? Okay. And again, it is a myth. Telling someone to slow down or take a deep breath is not necessarily a good comment, is not necessarily helpful, is sometimes demeaningful to the messages they are trying to communicate with you. So this is one of the examples that I told you about in the introduction that is really affecting children and teens dealing with the stuttering and in different situations. I'm gonna talk more about it in the upcoming slides. We're gonna go with stuttering can be caught by hearing someone else stutter. And this is something that I've seen, like I've heard from many parents. They would tell me that he started stuttering because his cousin stutters and he is trying to imitate him and he thinks it's funny, etc. So is it a fact? Can he actually, did he actually, get or catch this stuttering from his cousin, or is it a myth? Okay, I have a question that I'm gonna ask, that I'm gonna answer throughout the presentation. If I didn't answer it, I can answer it at the end. Rana. So it is a fact. Okay, any more answers? Okay, so it is actually a myth also, because again, the main causes are some genetic predispositions, some neurophysiological, disorder or challenge that is going on. It's not by copying someone who is stuttering that the person is going to have the long-term stuttering. The last one, children who stutter have the same intelligence levels as children who do not stutter. I really hope we all answer with 1, because it's definitely a fact. And at no point a person who is dealing with stuttering, even if they are struggling with getting their words out, it doesn't affect, it's not actually related to the level of intelligence they have or to how bright they can be or how many things they can achieve in life. Okay, in this slide, it's text. Okay, I couldn't reduce them more than that. But these are clear facts and these are common myths that we, saw together. I can go through them very quickly. People who stutter or who don't stutter have the same intelligence level. It is not caused by anxiety, shyness, or psychological differences. There is no medical cure, so we cannot, cure it medically. Speech and language therapy can help, and we're going to see that later, and I'm going to talk about that later. Stuttering varies in different situations, and it's different within the speaking partners. Sometimes it is more visible in class. Sometimes it is more at home. Sometimes it is more with a certain friend. Sometimes it is not. It depends on so many factors and on so many things, and it depends on the individual. Stuttering can be cyclical. So this is one of the answers I can have for your question, Rana. So stuttering can be cyclical, with frequency and severity changing over weeks or months. Sometimes it just disappears. Sometimes it goes away for a certain period of time, and when the person is then facing something else, as another situation, etc., it can show a bit more. Children who stutter may feel self-conscious and avoid class participation. I'm gonna share with you some tips on how to avoid that. Many famous people and successful people stutter, and this is something that I make sure I share with the children and teenagers I work with, and definitely with their parents. Some myth: nervousness can cause stuttering. Reality: nervousness does not cause stuttering, and people who stutter have a typical range of personality traits. So, like many like all people, sometimes nervousness or stress is not necessarily related to stuttering, but sometimes the stuttering itself causes the anxiety towards speaking. And this is where we go into a certain cycle. Stuttering can be caused by imitation. It is something that I already explained. Telling someone to take a deep breath or think before speaking does not necessarily help. This advice increases self-consciousness and worsens stuttering. Instead, listen patiently and model slow, clear speech. It is one of the advice or one of the recommendations I'm gonna share with you in a bit. So this is something that you can do instead of commenting on the child or on the teenager speech. Okay, when to defer and where to defer, and whether we have to defer or not. I'm gonna answer, and if you have any extra questions, you can ask at the end. I'm pretty sure that lots of you are teachers, and I would say that once you feel like any of your children, like any of the students, is getting stuck on their words, is avoiding a certain situation related to speaking, is avoiding speaking to his friends, speaking in front of everyone, speaking to you, if you feel like there are some blockages, repetitions, etc., even though it can be really common, it can be really just a phase, it's not a bad idea to consult the speech and language therapist that is in the school. So there's no point of, there's no need of, getting afraid or seeking outsourcing the help of, it's really important that the person, because I'm pretty sure that most of the schools have speech and language therapists or psychologists in the school, so you can reach out to either one of them or to both, so you can feel free to tell them about what is going on with the child so that they can support you, because as I told you, sometimes it is just a phase, but other times it can be the start of a long journey. So it's really good to start with, with some good strategies, with to start building some certain, speech maybe modification techniques or some adaptations to do in your classroom, so that this person would feel much more comfortable in their own speech. Now, when this is about like the classroom, this is about the children who are really young. When a child is around, like it's between, let's say, 5 and 7 years old, even older, it's always a good idea to consult, to ask for a piece of advice. The therapist or the professionals will be there to support you, to tell you whether this person can benefit from a speech and language therapy. And the speech and language therapy often works on two main things: speech modification techniques, depending on the age of the person. They would help the person to speak in a certain way that is much more beneficial and that is much more helpful to help them get their words out. And they also, in speech and language therapy, work a lot on strategies that boost their self-confidence, that help the child or the teenager process what is going on with them. So we explain really what is stuttering, how can this person overcome it, how to do different challenges, and how to expose themselves to different situations so that they do not so that they don't try to avoid certain situations like speaking publicly, etc. On the contrary, we try to build some sort of strategies. We give them some confidence. We teach them, we share with them some tips so that they will be able to give this public presentation, do this job interview, etc. The psychology part is also very important, and we often work with psychologists because so many people or children can also benefit a lot from speaking to someone who is really professional in everything related to mental health, self-confidence, emotional regulation. So these are all things that the psychologist can be supporting, can support a child or the teenager or the adult even with. But okay, I think I'm gonna add something here. It's really it is also important to accept stuttering and to not place it necessarily directly under he needs or she needs therapy. Okay, I'm not sure how you guys are gonna take my message, but some of the adults people, some of the teenagers, some of the stuttering, some of the people who are facing stuttering have the right to say that, look, I stutter, you're gonna have to wait for me, and once I'm done. Okay, so sometimes, although we work on many different speech modification techniques, it's sometimes difficult to not to stutter throughout a whole conversation or throughout a whole speech. So the person who is also in therapy can sometimes still will sometimes still stutter. It is not, as I said, it is not something curable. It's not something that is gonna disappear. So many adults, so many people will decide that I don't necessarily need therapy and I am fine with what I have, and it's part of speaking. The thing that what we should do here is to spread awareness around the environment, to spread awareness in the schools, to spread awareness around us now, like we're doing in the webinar. And let's not put the idea that every person who stutters should go into therapy. Therapy can help. Therapy will help. The good therapy, the good approaches will definitely help, but the stuttering will be there. So it's really important to spread awareness around the community wherever we go, so that we really support the people who are facing stuttering. Okay. Just a sip of water. Okay, so how parents and children can, how parents and teachers can really support children with stuttering. I am sharing with you some of the recommendations I usually send to the school or to the parents of the children or teenagers I work with. Teachers and parents should be able to create a supportive environment and should be able to use effective communication technique. I really highlight on the importance of the active listening and on the importance of showing patience when we are talking to someone who is stuttering. It's really important to avoid interrupting and to avoid finishing their sentences, and to avoid asking them to breathe or to relax or to slow down. But instead, it's good to show the child how it is expected from him to speak. So it is really important to slow down, to speak clearly, to be a bit slower in your communication, to show them that you are really listening, and to model the way you guys are expecting them to talk, which is what I'm doing right now. It's really important to maintain natural eye contact with the child and to be aware of your facial expressions. And this is not only for child, it's for any person who is stuttering, but especially with children who are not necessarily still equipped to know how to, face these situations or to understand what is going on. So when a child is talking to you and is getting stuck, if you're gonna wait for them like that, if you're not gonna be aware of the facial expressions you're doing while waiting, which is frowning, which is which is some sort of the things that I did, it's gonna affect them really, really, really negatively. So it's really important to wait until they finish their sentence with a bright, with a neutral face, with being aware of the expressions that you are doing. And it's really important to really teach them since a young age how to understand their feelings and how to talk about their feelings with you. How to put some labels to certain feelings, maybe faced in certain situations when they wanted to speak and they couldn't. It's really important to let them know that you are there for them, so then when they're ready to talk about that, you are listening actively and you are not judging and you are not trying to hide anything from them. Now, something that is really specific to parents, I know that many parents are struggling with finding a moment to sit and talk to their children. But here, in this case, it is really important that we find some like at least a minimum of 10 minutes a day where you have a one-on-one conversation with your children, a one-on-one conversation focusing on feelings, on tell me how was your day today, etc. And without judging the way they are talking to you, without really highlighting or saying or paying attention to the stuttering itself, but try to pay attention to the messages they are delivering, to the communication they are trying to give you, and then deal with it as in a proper conversation, but not really focused on stuttering and on taking notes whether the child did stutter or not. The second point is really, really crucial, and it's really important, and it's reviewed and it's really proven in many papers that it's really affecting stuttering in general. So when we are having a very speed lifestyle, come on, finish your food, come on, get done with your lessons, come on, get done with your, because we have to go. So when we are really having a fast-paced lifestyle, when we are in a loud environment and a stressful environment, and when we are having conflicts with one another inside the house, it's really affecting the stuttering. So it's really important to avoid that, to be a bit calmer, to plan things ahead of time so that we don't stress the child 24/7. Encourage your child to express their feelings in various situations. I already talked about that, and this is really, really, really important. Teachers in the classroom, it's really important to avoid putting the child on the spot. So when we want the children to answer, if you already know that a child is really struggling with stuttering, it's really important not to ask them to, come on, answer the question now in front of everyone. It's good to have a word with their speech and language therapists or psychologists or parents to know more about what would make him feel comfortable, because many of the children, they do not have any problem being put on the spot and raising their hands and participating, where others are a bit more uncomfortable with these situations due to their stuttering. So it's really important not to put them on the spot without, consulting them first. You can go and ask them, do you want to answer the next question? Do you feel like, so it's really important to take that into consideration. It's really important to raise awareness on the subject, to do some activities related to listening to one another, to wait until the other person has finished their sentences. Do not cut your friend's sentence. So it's really important to talk about listening, not interrupting one another, taking turns, etc. Especially when we have when we have a child who is facing stuttering in the classroom. If we know for a fact from the speech and language therapist or from the parents that he is much more interactive in small groups, it's not a bad idea to create some small groups where he can participate with being, much more comfortable. And it's really, really, really important that we have a zero tolerance for teasing and bullying for all ages and in all different places, and to know how to deal with it. And it's really important to dig deeper, like to know whether this person is really being bullied or not, because it's really important not to. It will change their whole future. Now, when it comes to teens, it's a bit more specific. Even in therapy, so even in speech and language therapy, when I am working with a child who is under 6 years old, or who is 8 years old, or who is 15 years old, the strategies would be different. The things we ask them to achieve, to complete, are a bit different. Sometimes there are similarities, sometimes they are different. When empowering teens, it's a bit, again, it's a bit challenging for us to know how to deal with them, not because they are stuttering, but because they are facing so many, challenges that are faced by, different teens. So especially the teens that are having stuttering, there are at so many times some social pressure around them. That teenagers at this age will start, asking questions, will start, thinking about their looks, about how are they gonna represent themselves in the outside in the world and everything. How are they gonna build friendships? So it's really important that sometimes they do, face some specific challenges when building that, due to the fact that sometimes they are not being able to, produce like full conversations with others. Active listening and avoiding interrupting their sentences, I couldn't highlight it enough. It's the same. So it's really important to avoid doing that to anyone in general. Encouraging self-advocacy and confidence. I think it's really good to give them some, like, this is something that we work with, like, during in the speech and language sessions, and I'm pretty sure in the within the psychology sessions, where we encourage them to also play a role in raising awareness, to talk about stuttering. So it's not a bad idea to also talk with them about stuttering. Maybe here it's more, it should start more with the parents rather than the teachers. But when the teen is comfortable enough, they can also have such or similar conversations with their teachers. So the teachers can ask the person very clearly and without any, without being afraid, or without, hesitating. What do you feel like presenting today or not? So just to talk about stuttering as if it is, really something that is normal. So many people are dealing with it. If the teen wants to do a public presentation or do a class presentation, then let's encourage this. If they don't really want that, let's ask them, let's talk about it, like, loud and clear about it, and to ask them whether they are comfortable with it, whether they are not, whether they need our help to achieve it, to achieve certain, public speaking situation, etc. It's really important as parents to tell them that they can be supported. Like there are so many groups, there are so many communication groups, there are so many different teams who are facing the same, where they can be grouped all together, share some things about the stuttering. I think just the fact of informing them that they are not alone in this, it will make them feel much more confident. It will make them feel a bit more okay with the stuttering that they are facing and everything they have to deal with. Guiding career and future planning, it's also important to talk with them about what do they think of doing when they grow up, whether they are fearing something that is related to stuttering itself. So for example, they would tell you, well, my dream is to be, I don't know, a teacher, but I know that this will not be possible because I have stuttering. So this is really important to stop them there and to talk about it until we can show them that it's not necessarily true. You can become a teacher with stuttering, with some certain techniques, with the right things that you can add to your speech. It will go. You will grow. Better. You will be able to achieve your dream. You will be able to do the dream job that you want. I hope I answered most of your questions, and I think it's the right time to receive more questions if you feel like asking anything.
Thank you, Joa. Thank you for the beautiful presentation. So anyone who has question, you can type them in the chat box. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. I think I already covered the question where, but what if stuttering is only because of stress, and when they calm down, they are okay? So again, the cause is not stress, but helping them or giving them the right strategies to deal with stress will definitely affect positively the outcome of their speech.
All right, that's it, Joa. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope to see you again in our next webinar. I'm putting here in the chat box the topic. There you go.
We see changes during a short time.
Okay. And yes, Joa, thank you so much. By the way, Joa is in Germany right now. She's doing the webinar in Germany. So thank you so much for the time, Joa.
You're most welcome. Happy to see you. Bye.
Yeah, see you.
Some people are sending questions right now, Mylin.
Okay.
Please feel free. Wait, let me try to answer some of them. I would love to know your feelings on bringing awareness to a child's disfluency directly. Example, to acknowledge their challenges and develop insights. Thank you for the question. So I think here it's gonna depend on the child's age. So it depends on the age it's really beneficial to start by listening to the child rather than to highlight to them that they are stuttering, especially under the age of 6. I really recommend that we go slowly in the awareness, journey to see, to track if the child is complaining or is telling me, mommy, I'm getting stuck on words, or is expressing some of the struggles that he's facing. If he has some extra questions, to know how to answer their questions without directly labeling things for him. So I think it's going to depend on the child's age and on the child's questions. And definitely once he reaches a certain level in the therapy, like in the speech and language therapy, it's really important that once we all agree, like you, the therapist, the parents, once we all agree that this is okay to, talk about things as they are, it's really important to be able and to have the courage to talk about the things as they are, without hiding anything, without letting the child, think of things on their own. It's really good to have this relationship at all ages. I think someone said that there is a massage therapy. So yes, there are many things that a person can do to relax the tension that is sometimes seen with stuttering. So as I told you, there are some movements, some tensions that are sometimes like that are sometimes with the person, that sometimes seen with the person who is stuttering. So yes, things like yoga, things like breathing exercises, things that like massages, etc., they do not directly work on the speech itself, but they work on the things that are caused by the tension why a person is delivering a certain speech. So yes, they are really good for many factors, and yes, they exist. Okay, we see many children who go through many changes during a short time, and then they will show stuttering. Yeah. Sometimes typically at the first question of a therapist would be, when did the stuttering start? And we ask so many questions about when did it start, how did it start, what are the factors that are that are around the stuttering, but it is something that we actually see. So it's not really a question. Okay, it was a very informative session. Well, I'm glad you all found it informative, and you can send your questions at any time at the email addresses and at the contacts that we are sharing with you. Anything else you would like to ask, please send them through. Looking forward to be answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joa.
Bye.
Bye. Shukran.